Plenty of double dips on Mother's Day across the bigs, but only so much hay could be made. Here's a look at Matt Snyder's latest MLB Power Rankings, with the Dodgers moving 3 spots to the top of the list after a successful week. All New York hanging around the top as well, Yankees and Mets. Angels not too far down as the West Coast, East Coast, and everything in between sizing them up with another week in the books with our Matt Snyder. All right, let's dig into the details with the man himself, CBS baseball writer Matt Snyder. Matt, a pair of perfect weeks for the Astros and the White Sox, but the best in baseball still resides in New York and L.A. Who's your biggest mover upwards the board this week? We saw L.A. at the top there, moving 3 spots.
Yeah, they've had a really good week. They were more punished last week for getting beat at Arizona, but now it looks like that's not even that bad because the Diamondbacks are going really well. The Astros were probably the best because they looked mediocre for a second and had to drop them down into the teens, but now they're back on track. They've won 7 in a row. It's all on their arms right now because while they do have a potentially high-powered offense, they only gave up 8 runs during that entire 7-game winning streak. They gave up no more than 2 in a game. They threw a couple shutouts. It was an unbelievable week for the pitching behind Justin Verlander, who I don't want to say he looks like prime Justin Verlander, but that's not an insult because prime Justin Verlander is as good as we've ever seen. How about very, very good Justin Verlander here at age 39? That's a big deal. So kudos to the Astros. Rays 6 in 1 week. They almost went 7-0. They just got beat on a walk-off by the Mariners. White Sox 6 in a week as well after a pretty brutal stretch. Those were 3 in particular. It's funny, those were the AL division winners last year. So it was something about this week with last year's AL division winners kind of getting things together after mediocre, or in the case of the White Sox, bad starts.
As my parents would tell me, hasn't been any sunlight in Chicago, and on that schedule there hasn't been much either. Maybe we're breaking into spring in more ways than one here on the South Side. Conversely, nothing but L's for the A's, who have collected 9 straight the wrong way. But for those more at the center of the conversation, Matt, who took the biggest slide this week?
I had to dock the Blue Jays a little bit. They'd been in or around my top 3 pretty much all year, and I still think that they have the capability of being one of the best teams or the best team in the American League, but they had a rough week. They had a chance to kind of put the Yankees in line. The Yankees had this big winning streak, but there were a bunch of Royals and Orioles on the schedule with the Yankees beating up on. The Blue Jays could have sent a message and said, hey, you're beating up on weak teams, but we're the class of the AL East. Instead, the Yankees went in and won that series. And then the Blue Jays followed that up by going and losing 3 of 4 to a mediocre, not bad at all, but mediocre Guardians team. So rough week for the Blue Jays, especially in terms of having the head-to-head opportunity against the Yankees and not taking advantage of that. Also the Giants, they did get a win Sunday, but before that they had lost 7 of their last 9. They lost the series to a bad Nationals team at home, and then they had an opportunity against the Dodgers, and they got swept in 2 games, including 1 blowout to the Dodgers. So maybe the Giants don't quite have as much magic as last year.
All right, something to keep an eye on, no doubt. We got to do our bi-coastal check-in. Major market movers coming in the form of the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Angels. When you look at these 4 clubs right now, from the standpoint of sustainability, do you see staying power in all 4?
Yeah, I mean, to lesser degrees, for sure. And it's interesting. It was like 2 weeks ago I saw the stat that the 4 New York and LA teams had never been in first place all at the exact same time. And of course, that's an anomaly and doesn't really mean that much. But it was like, wow, really? You would have thought it would have happened at some point. But here they all are still standing right there. Obviously, I don't think the Dodgers are going anywhere. They were my preseason number 1. I don't think that they'll spend much time outside the top 5, if any, all year. So they're going to continue to be one of the best teams in the league. I'm a firm believer in the Mets, as we've talked about in the last few weeks, and they're just keeping it going. They're now 8-0-1 in series, and that's one of the biggest deals, is going out and winning series. I believe in the Yankees as well. I think their offense has such firepower in it that really we haven't seen on a consistent basis even now. And when you're getting a good Severino there behind Garrett Cole in the rotation, Montgomery's only going to be good for 5, maybe 6, but it's still a nice guy to have and to get you into that very deep bullpen. So they're a well-rounded team. So it comes back to the Angels. If they're going to have staying power, and we've gone through this for the last 8 years or so, are the Angels going to be able to be competitive? Are they going to contend? Are they going to go in the playoffs? Then are they going to have a deep playoff run? They haven't been to the playoffs since 2014. They got knocked out in the first round that year by the wild card Royals. Look, they've got Trout. They've got Rendon, who had the walk-off today. They've got Ohtani, who tied the game with a double and 2 outs in the ninth today. It looks like Ward might be very real. Looks like Marsh might be very real. How's the pitching staff going to hold up? They're the biggest question mark. I'm going to go with that. They will have staying power and they will contend all year and make the playoffs. But I admit it might be wishful thinking.
Matt, what do you say? This time next week, same question. We'll do a progress report on the Halos each go around.
Yes.
We'll see where they're at.
I'm down with that.
We'll size them up come September. Elsewhere, the defending champs, well, they got a welcome shot in the arm in the form of Ronald Acuna. His return this week. He's just one of those guys where baseball's better with him out there on the field.
Absolutely.
Acuna, all the bravado that comes with it. What does this mean for this next stretch in Atlanta as they try and track down the Mets?
Yeah, well, he looks like he's starting to get his mojo back. He just hit his first home run. He was 2 for 4 with a double. And while it wasn't a huge week to say the Braves went 4-3, they're a team that's talented enough to turn things around on a dime like they did last year. Remember, they had never even been above 500 until in the middle of August last year. And then they rode that to win the World Series. And that was without Acuna, who you could have argued was their best player. I know people might have said Freeman was, but it was one of those two. So for them to pull that off without Acuna, and now they've got him back, as you see on there, it does look like he's getting his mojo back. So when they go into New York and split with the Mets, who are, again, 8-0-1 in series, that one was a split series with these Braves, and they go and take 2 of 3 from the Brewers, who had been among the best teams in baseball before that series. 4-3, you think, oh, that's not a great week, that's just a good week. But for me, I'm looking at it and I'm going, they might just be on the verge of a really big hot streak. So keep an eye on them.
All right, so that's where they currently stand, but the situation is fluid and there's a whole lot of game left. Matt Snyder, thank you as always. All right, let's take a look as we do each and every Sunday at the odds to win the 2022 World Series. Live odds courtesy of our friends at Caesar Sportsbook. And the situation, again, it's fluid. So if you want to buy, maybe buy now because you're taking a look at the Mets, who are 7.5 to 1. This time last week, 10 to 1. Yankees now 8 to 1 to win it all. This time last week, 11 to 1. The White Sox, after a very positive week, coming in sub 20 to 1 for the first time in a long time at 18 to 1. Plenty of value to be had if you know who's getting it done.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.